Today is Wednesday, June 30th, 2021. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, Bill Cosby is at home as we speak after the Pennsylvania Supreme Court freed him from prison, citing a deal struck with a previous prosecutor that said he was not to be charged. We're going to break it all down with our stellar legal panel, including Monique Presley, who was a formerly lawyer for Bill Cosby. Also, we'll be joined by Tanya Fields of the Black Feminist Project. Sexual assault advocates are outraged at today's decision. And comedian Joe Torre has long stood by his Omega Psi Phi fraternity brother. He will join us as well. And so, folks, it's a jam-packed show. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time. And it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, breaking news out of Pennsylvania. Well, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court today threw out the conviction of comedian Bill Cosby. 3 years ago, he was convicted of assault, and he was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison. Well, they ruled today that the decision to prosecute him was wrong. Why? Because he previously, with another prosecutor, agreed not to pursue criminal charges against him in exchange for him speaking in a civil deposition, in a civil trial. What that meant was that in that particular civil deposition, he could not declare his Fifth Amendment rights to self-incrimination. The court ruled today that as a result of that agreement not to prosecute him, which then caused him to give up those rights, that was wrong, and that the new prosecutor who campaigned specifically that he would prosecute Bill Cosby, he should have honored that previous commitment. It was a shocking turn of events. Not only did the decision come down today, Bill Cosby this afternoon was freed from prison. What I want to do right now is I want to bring up our panel. First and foremost, Monique Presley, crisis manager and lawyer, A. Scott Bolden, of course, a former head of the National Bar Association Political Action Committee. I want to talk with them first. Monique, I'll start with you. Was today's decision by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturning lower court's ruling, was it a shock to you? You previously represented Bill Cosby in this particular case. You were one of several lawyers, but your thoughts on today's decision by the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court?
They did the right thing. And what I said on December 31st, 2015 is the same thing that I have to say today, and that the Supreme Court ultimately said. When a prosecutor makes a promise and a defendant or potential defendant relies on the promise to his own detriment, that cannot stand. The original prosecutor made a promise, declined to prosecute, and induced the testimony of Mr. Cosby in a civil case because of that assurance. But for that, he would have had the opportunity, and certainly the lawyers then would have advised him to plead the Fifth. He would have remained silent because there was the potential out there for a criminal charge in that case. Bruce Castor's decision eliminated that as a possibility, supposedly. And then you fast forward 12 years to a new prosecutor who somehow decides that if the person who's sitting in the seat of government wants to do something different because the times call for something different, or because it's an election season and he wants to win, then he doesn't have to honor what a prior prosecutor promised and what a potential defendant relied upon. It was absurd from the outset and should not have occurred. And so what the Supreme Court said about it is that that cannot happen, that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has to adhere to the promises of its officers where its citizens have relied on those promises. And that's what we saw today.
There's been a lot of people who have been commenting, a lot of people who have been saying this is an outrage, that Bill Cosby should not have been free from prison. Scott Bolden, this was a 79-page decision rendered by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Your judgment on today's decision? Scott, we have no audio, so please unmute yourself.
Sorry. It was the law, and the Supreme Court, in a 79-page decision, which means they were very intentional about this, said, regardless of what you think about Bill Cosby and the 5 or 6 women or the dozens of women who he allegedly was wrongfully acted with, the bottom line is they tricked him into giving up his Fifth Amendment and then tried him years later that violated his due process rights. I agree with Monique. It's pretty standard fare. I have a Fifth Amendment right. If I cut a deal to give it up with a prosecutor, another prosecutor 12 years later can't come up and say, I'm not going to honor that deal. The other thing to remember, Roland, about this is that the Supreme Court could have taken a slightly different position. I believe the other issue pending before the court, vis-a-vis whether the probative value of those other women being led into the second trial outweighed the prejudicial effect. I think the court would have ruled that it was too prejudicial. And had they ruled on that second issue, first issue was the violation of the due process. Had they ruled on the second issue versus the first issue, they could have sent it back down to be retried. But instead, they intentionally said, we're going to deal with the due process piece, because if he violated his due process rights and you tricked him into giving up his Fifth Amendment and you prosecuted him, then the other women and how the trial went are moot and don't really matter. And so they chose to attack this case like that, so that, one, they vacated the judgment, cannot be retried, and then they discharged him. Case over, bottom line. And he's at home at 79 years old, and there are a lot of people who disagree with the court's decision, but the law doesn't serve one side or the other. It just serves the law and the judicial system, and this was the right thing to do, was the right legal decision to make, and the rest of it on politics and perceptions, people can have their opinions, but this was the right call by the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania.
Well, first, Cosby is 83, so I'm sure he would appreciate you shaving 4 years off of his age there, Scott.
He's a cute too.
He's 83 years old. But Monique, to Scott's point about how the law works regardless of who you are, the critics say Bill Cosby got a sweetheart deal by this prosecutor, Bruce Castor, choosing not to pursue charges. In reading the 79-page document from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, they laid out where he stated that he did not believe that he could actually get a conviction because of inconsistencies in Andrea Constant's testimony, also no physical evidence and the time gap between it, and that he gave many statements where he also said that he wanted to be some measure of justice, which as a result of this decision required Bill Cosby to have to answer all questions during this civil case. There were 4 depositions he sat for during the civil case, and then at one point he did answer some questions. They went to the court, and the court said, yes, as a result of the previous agreement, you have to answer these questions. And there are a lot of people out there who are saying that this decision vindicated Bill Cosby, or that Bill Cosby was declared innocent. That's actually not what this decision rendered actually says, correct?
No, it doesn't have to say that. It says that he shouldn't be charged in the first place. It says wash it all away as if the trial never happened. Somebody in this country is still innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. You can't be proven guilty on something you never should have been charged with in the first place. So people can say in language whatever they want, whatever way they want, but I see a lot of people, even legal folks, calling this a technicality. To me, again, absurd. How is someone inducing you to waive essentially your Fifth Amendment right to not be incriminated against, and that be called a technicality when it is the direct cause of things that happen later? So anyone who doesn't think that they have a liberty interest at stake will answer questions that any lawyer would first say, don't do it, if they thought that there was any possibility of a trial. So what I think about now is that people who understand the law and respect it should replace Mr. Cosby with any given defendant. Replace him with your son, with your husband, with your brother. We try one case at a time, and the obligation in the justice system is to do it when it's right to do it. So imagine your family member being made a promise that they relied on by the government. That promise is supposed to stand. We need justice to apply the same for every single person in every single case, and that's to administer it fairly.
To that particular point there, Scott, as I went through this ruling, this 79-page ruling, that was the one thing that the court kept coming back to. They kept coming back to saying the fact that Bruce Castor, as a prosecutor, carries a lot of power, a lot of weight, and that his decision had to be respected. That once once a defendant gets this word, and even though there were claims that, well, it was not actually written down or it wasn't actually formalized, they concluded that as an agent of the court, if you will, that carries a lot of weight when he says we are not going to prosecute you criminally. Therefore, as a part of this agreement, you must testify civilly. What they're saying is that, look, in other words, what Monique said, that frankly, Bill Cosby did not have that agreement. He's not speaking truthfully when answering all questions in the civil. So if Bill Cosby didn't get that agreement, we actually would not have any testimony of him actually speaking on the record about quaaludes and sex and drinks, things along those lines.
And it was an interesting deal. I mean, we've been at this a long time, Monique and I. I've never seen a prosecutor do this type of deal. But they did the deal, and the court recognized that. But remember why Castor did it this way. He could not prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. He could not, and he announced he couldn't, and that he was going to do this deal where he was going to allow to say he will never be prosecuted or not prosecuted, and in exchange for that, he will give civil testimony, and ultimately that case settled for $3 or $4 million. It didn't have to be in writing. I'm an officer of the court. Castor was an officer of the Pennsylvania State Court and the prosecutor. That does carry weight. A deal's a deal, as I've been saying on social media, and you can't unwind the deal because you don't like the discretion of that prosecutor. And so here, it's even more egregious because in exchange for him giving up his Fifth Amendment, he agreed to testify. And that's what Castor wanted because there was going to be a civil settlement. The prosecutors cut deals like this all the time vis-a-vis, they know a civil case is out there. Here, Castor structured this deal to get him to give up his Fifth Amendment. He gave it up because Castor knew he couldn't prosecute him criminally because what? There wasn't enough evidence. So on the first trial, there wasn't enough evidence. And then the second trial, they brought in these other prior bad acts, allegedly, these other women. They let in 5 or 6, and then you get the conviction. That's not due process. That's not fundamental fairness. And that's just a bad jury verdict based on what's underlying all of this.
And there were a lot of people, obviously, Monique, who were also critical of the fact that that deposition that was taken, he sat for four different sessions. A deposition was leaked or inadvertently exposed publicly, which then put it in the public record. If that doesn't happen, then publicly, we don't have even that in the trial, correct?
I don't know. Or maybe I know things I can't say. But here's my point.
Well, first of all, for anybody who's paying attention, even though she is formerly Bill Cosby's attorney, the attorney-client privilege requirement still stands. So that's why there are some things she cannot talk about. Go ahead.
Right. And other things that I just will not talk about because I think there just is an obligation of confidentiality. So anything that I'm commenting is publicly available. It's things I said publicly then, things that were in trial, or things that others have already commented on publicly. To Scott's point, I think it's really important that this Supreme Court had the option to reverse and remand, had the option on the other issue, and I think they would have. I think that the decision by the judge in one trial to not let in that testimony, and then when it hangs, comes back in the second trial and basically opens a barnyard door and says, "Come one, come all, tell your story." That made the difference in the trial, and the Supreme Court likely would have found that, but they decided instead, no. We are taking it all the way to the beginning, before the first trial, when there were charges on December 30th, 2015. That is the decision that was wrong. And so it's not a decision by Castor that was wrong in making the deal. Prosecutors have all the discretion in the world. It was the decision by Steele to not honor it that was violative of Mr. Cosby's rights. If you just think about the way prosecutors come up with plea agreements and then the court ratifies those agreements, what if the prosecutor 10 years later decides the day before your little brother is supposed to get out of prison on a deal that was 10 out of a 10 to 20 possibility? We shouldn't have offered that. That's too low. We think he did some other things. We can't get him for the other things, so we're going to stack on more time here. Are you kidding me? No, that cannot be the way that our justice system works. And I am thankful that the Supreme Court sent that message very clearly today.
And for the people who don't understand, the last line in the court's opinion is that accordingly, we do not address Cosby's other issue. That other issue they're talking about is the judge allowing other women to testify, speaking to his character. That was one of the complaints the Cosby attorneys made, that their testimony should not have been allowed in. People also got to remember the first Cosby trial ended in a mistrial. He was convicted in the second trial. It was in the second trial when the judge allowed those women to actually testify. And so you had lots of different things that were going on here. There have been a number of people who have been responding. We've seen lots of folks on social media commenting. Victims' rights advocates have been speaking as well, weighing in. I want to pull up right now. Tanya Fields, she joins us right now with the Black Feminist Project. Tanya, glad to have you on the show. Just want to get your reaction to today's developments of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court regarding the release of Bill Cosby from prison after serving 3 years of what was supposed to be a 3 to upwards of 10 years sentence.
You know, I'm certainly not a legal expert. I am a survivor of both domestic and sexual assault. I work closely with folks in this community who deal with, who are support to survivors. And I think we are talking right now, Monique, and I'm sorry, I forget the other gentleman's name. Scott. Hi, Scott. Are talking very astutely and brilliantly about, the legal process and due process. And I don't have much to offer in the way of that. What it brings up for me is that we are ironically talking about justice, but we're talking about justice for someone who has admitted that they engaged in sexual acts with people who could not consent. That is by very definition rape. And that we have a justice system that continually does not side on the side of those survivors and those victims. And I think that in all of this discussion, that is what is getting lost. That for me is where we need to have deeper conversations, right? I think that it's really interesting that Monique is talking about people's little brothers, right? And people's fathers. And we have seen a justice system that continually has failed Black men, right? And we talk about that. But as soon as we talk about a justice system that is failing women, right, now we want to invoke those images. That doesn't really seem fair. We know that this justice system is not, in fact, a justice system that works for folks. And there are certain folks who continually get maligned. Bill Cosby is not somebody's little brother. He's not someone's, poor father in a poor neighborhood. This is a man who had a lot of influence. This is a man who had a lot of money. And he used that money and influence to rape women. And now he used that money and influence to be able to use the legal system in such a way that it would benefit him. And I think that we need to call a thing. And that's the thing that's happening right now. And so for me, I feel very sorry for the victims. I feel very sorry for those of us who have been victims and who are survivors and who are thinking about whether or not we can disclose, and they are terrified because we know that there's a justice system that continues to be on the side of patriarchal oppressive systems for femmes and femme presenting and women and girls who are victimized.
You mentioned in terms of what we're talking about here, there's a reason why I separate the issues. First, for the purpose of the audience, we have to explain to the audience exactly legally what happened.
Right.
So there have been a lot of people. So for instance, there have been a lot of people on social media who have been saying that Bill Cosby was exonerated. Well, that's actually not the ruling. They actually laid out specifically what the ruling was. The decision of the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court today was not that he did it, that he didn't do it. What they ruled today was that there should not have been a trial as a result of that previous agreement with the prosecutors. And so now the reality is he still testified in a civil deposition in terms of his relationship with Andrea Constand and other women and what he did, giving Benadryl, also in terms of answer question when it comes to Quaaludes. That's actually on the record. Monique, want to give you an opportunity to respond there, because there's been just so many different feelings. There have been people saying, how dare people celebrate this decision because of the legal ruling by the court. There have been others who say it's bad, others who say law should be changed, all of these different things here. And again, naturally, because people are very emotional about this issue, allegations of sexual assault, we can go down the line, it's really causing a lot of conflicted feelings among people, men and women.
Yes. Well, you know, Roland, I'm here today as a legal analyst, not as an advocate for any client or a spokesperson for any person. So I don't really feel led to run down the litany of the million things I've already said. I don't take any of them back, but I don't feel the need to say them again. What I will say is that women matter in the justice system. Men matter in the justice system. Black women and Black men are mistreated in higher numbers in the justice system. They are wrongfully convicted more. They are abused more. Black women's cases are not taken as seriously. We are viewed differently than our white counterparts. All of those things are no more or less true because the Supreme Court today decided that in order for our government to function, when prosecutors make a promise, they have to keep it. That is what this is about. This is about something that should not have happened. So as emotional as people may be, and as emotional as people are going to be, the fact of the matter is, from the person who is innocent and has never done a single thing wrong to the person in the United States of America, at least, the person who just blows up buildings, they both are under the same justice system, and they are supposed to have the same rights, and they are supposed to be treated in the same manner, regardless of color, creed, sex, wealth. Doesn't matter about any of it. This is about what our government is supposed to do. So I believe that all of those other issues are valid. I have factual disagreements, but I think that there is a factual record out there that supports itself. But what today is important is that we know that whether you are old or young or Black or white, at least in Pennsylvania with that Supreme Court, they will hold their very powerful prosecutors to the same standard, no matter how much the times change and no matter how much the characters change.
Tanya, then Scott.
What exactly am I responding to here?
well, again, that what you're dealing with here is, again, distinctions. You're dealing with legal distinctions. You're dealing with distinctions of others who say you must always believe and support women. And then you have those who say Cosby was exonerated. Others who say no, he was not. I mean, that's.
He was not exonerated. I mean, we are talking about legal process here, right? That's the conversation that Monique and Scott are having, right? And that I'm being brought into. And much like Monique just said, I am not, I will concede that I am not an expert in those things. So I will not speak to that. But what I can tell you is that from my layperson's understanding of what happened here, it is. And she can talk about all the factual stuff she wants. There's factual stuff that victims' rights and survivors' rights can lay out as well. We know that the justice system, and I'm very uncomfortable even talking about that, right? Especially when we talk about the intersections, and we cannot talk about these things without talking about the intersections. We can talk about what the law is supposed to do, and we can talk about what the law actually does do, right? And we know, yes, that women do not disclose. We know that you look at the intersection of that, Black women do not disclose, Black trans women do not disclose, gay men do not, disclose a lot of the times, and that when they do, that they are treated with certain disparities, right? What I am merely speaking to here is that what I am seeing is a failing of the law on the side of the victims in the criminal case, right? Because from what I can see, what Castor did previously was that he made a deal, and he made a deal so that there would be some compensation in the civil space. Maybe he did not anticipate that this would come here, right? Because when you look at it from that perspective, I do agree with Scott. I do agree with Monique. You cannot make that kind of deal as an officer of the law and then come back 12 years later and some new person comes here and says, we're going to do something different. You are all acting on behalf of the state. And so in when you look at it from that perspective, then a decision was made that a lot of people from a legal perspective believe was the right decision. What I'm saying is a survivor. What I'm saying is someone who works in a community of people who have been victimized, right, at higher rates, and then do not disclose and do not have access. And when they do disclose, are treated unfairly or not believed. We don't believe women, right? We don't. And we have a law, legal system that reflects that. And so again, my point is, and it's the point I'm going to continually make, is that this was a failing for the victims in this case. And there is enough blame to go around, right? You know, one can argue that Castor should have never made that deal, and then somebody else will argue that he made the deal so that some person in the civil case could get some compensation, right? We could argue that after that deal was made, that yes, that this case, you know, this could have been the conviction could have been vacated, but then there should have been a new trial, right? And certainly people have made that. One of the judges who was in dissent said that yes, we should have a new trial, but we should not be vacating this and making it so that it didn't happen at all. So even from the legal standpoint, there is some dissension on what the outcome should have been once it was decided that the deal that was previously made should not have brought the disposition into the criminal case, that was the wrong legal decision. That's what we're talking about. Right now, we are not talking about how the survivors are getting justice. And so that is why I am here, to make sure that we keep that at the forefront of our minds, that we do, in fact, need to work on this legal system. We need to have a legal system that does look at how do we have transformative and rehabilitative justice for those who are the victims of sexual assault and sexual violence.
Scott, but in this case here, Scott, the jury did believe the women, and all of the courts, when it was appealed, it went through, and we went to the state Supreme Court. And so to the point that Tanya makes, when we talk about justice, when you talk about justice for these women, how do we reconcile that with this decision by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court?
Let me talk directly to Tanya, because as a former sex crimes prosecutor, I know I can never empathize with you because I'm not a survivor, but I can certainly sympathize with you. This hurts. This is disappointing to all the survivors and all the advocates out there. But let me give you a perspective that hopefully I don't get too legal, because I want you to honor this decision and respect it. You can feel the way you want. But the reason I think you got to honor and folks in your position and respect this decision is because the irony of this conversation is, when we talk about due process rights, when we talk about hearsay violations and prior bad actors coming in, you're right, the criminal justice system doesn't work. And it usually works against us, people that look like us, right? And so today, the reason I think you have to find a way to respect and honor this Supreme Court decision, not because it's a technicality, but the law is imperfect, yes, but it worked today because it said, I don't care who you are, you've got to respect the due process rights. A deal is a deal, and you cannot renege on a deal simply because of new leadership. Otherwise, you violate the fundamental fairness and the goals and objectives and principles of the very criminal justice system that our system is based upon. And it is imperfect, but today it worked, and you want that system to work. If you're ever going to get justice for victims and get justice for people that look like us, you've got to continue to believe it's the best system we have, but it is highly imperfect. You're going to get results like this, but if you honor those principles of the criminal justice system, We're going to make it better because we want it to work for black folks, white folks, victims, as well as defendants, because we've all bought into a social contract that we're going to accept rule of law and we're going to accept how the Supreme Courts of this country implement it. We may not always like it, but it's really the best thing we've got. And I hope you can find a way to respect and honor this, because hopefully this will make a difference in the lives of black people and all people who come before the criminal justice system.
Other thing that is getting overlooked in terms of government officers and agents with a good deal of discretion and discretionary authority is that this judge could have chosen to send Mr. Cosby home pending the appeal, because he knew, like everybody in the legal community knew, that at least 2 of the decisions that he had made were going to make for an immediate appeal and highly controversial, and that's being the 404B evidence of the testimony of the other women and the decision to not honor the promise made by former prosecutor Bruce Castor. So what happened instead is that Dr. Cosby was in prison for almost the entirety of the low end of his sentence for a case now that has been completely thrown out with a decision that there should not have been charges at all. So this, to me, should point to how much power our government agents have and how much depends upon their desire to adhere to their own rules and do what is fair across the board. Because there is no doubt in my mind that when we have different people, different race, different sex, we get different outcomes. And that is not what our Constitution is supposed to be about.
Robert Patillo, attorney out of Georgia, you join us. Just got to get your thoughts on today's decision of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court regarding Bill Cosby.
Well, Roland, I think what's important for people to remember is that when you hear lawyers giving an analysis of the facts, it's not personal opinion. It is not a Scott or Monique or Robert are defending Cosby and they're against rape victims. It's not they are against men. They're not. We're telling you what the law is and what the law should be. And the reason that these cases are important is you have to put yourself in that situation. If you were in a criminal proceeding where you were made assurances by the prosecution that your testimony would not be used against you, and then they decided to use that exact testimony against you. That is the dispassionate legal response that people have to understand. This is a due process question. It is an integrity of the legal system question. And while in the instant case, it may not provide the most closure to the victims, we should understand that in order for our system to maintain any legitimacy, we have to have apparatuses to cure those defects in the law, and understand that though this is a technicality, it is important that if it was you, that you would want to have a court system that will be able to overturn an unjust verdict against you, whether it's on a technicality or not. It's about the integrity of the system, not the particulars of the instant case and your personal feelings about guilt or innocence, but whether or not the system can function correctly.
Faraji Muhammad, there's been a lot of conversation. This blew up on social media real quick. Just want to get your immediate thoughts to the reaction of this decision by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court.
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening to everybody, Brother Roland, but one of the big questions I'm asking is, what is the impact that this is going to make on the culture? What is this impact that this is going to make on the conversations around sexual assault, especially to women of color? And so when we have these conversations, I think that, and I'm hearing Monique, I'm hearing Scott, I'm hearing Robert, and I'm saying to myself, I understand all of those things. But when we are living in a time where the conversation where the culture is necessitating much larger and bigger conversations about sexual assault, whether it's to women, whether it's to, within the LGBTQIA plus communities or wherever, then we have to look at this and say, okay, what is it that we can take away from this moment to ensure both the victims as well as the legal folks that there is going to be some level of justice? One of the things that I'm not hearing is the fact of okay, so what happens to the women that did make a statement? Not Andrea Constant. Okay, there was some discrepancies with her story, her recollection of the event. But what about the other one? And are we saying that? And I think this is going to be, this kind of case makes it a little bit harder for women to be believed. And Monique, you can certainly correct me on this, but I read a piece of data that says that most women are victims of sexual assault. Only about 4% of those who go through the process to try to get their the rapist or the assault person convicted, only about 4% of those cases actually lead to a conviction out of 100. So you mean 96% of those cases aren't being, are thrown out because of various legal issues, or the victims are not speaking out and all of those things. So this case, even though that it is because of a previous agreement between prosecutors, there is a cultural milestone of that this case carries, because it still speaks about women's voices. It still speaks about victim rights. It still speaks about the power of celebrity. It still speaks about the fact that you have a man who is not, quote unquote, punished because of the wrong that he's done. Now, are we saying that Mr. Cosby never did anything wrong in regards to using drugs to get sex from women? Because if that is the question, I think we have to ask ourselves that question. And I'm not saying we can answer it today, but if we have to ask ourselves the question, if we don't ask ourselves the question of, are we saying that he has no victims at all? Because, okay, it might not be Andrea Constant, but it could be somebody else. And if it is even just one person, should he not be punished for that and for that violation?
I want to bring in right now comedian Joe Torre. First of all, Tanya Fields was with us. She had another meeting, so we lost her. And we're still having some technical issues on my end. Hopefully y'all can still hear me. The video is problematic, but we'll figure that out. Joe Torre, you have been one of the few comedic voices who remain steadfast by Bill Cosby's side, attending trial as well. Your reaction to today's developments in Pennsylvania?
I mean, today, to me, because really listening to everything that went on, and that's why, I went, I was invited to go see the trial. And I think a lot of stuff is distorted. If you wasn't really in there sitting hours watching them find people lying, finding that whatever Bill said and whatever's in that deal, which is, you had the privilege to be there, that he was truthful. He was truthful from day one. Now, how the media wanted to distort that and put it out like, oh, he dropped them in. No, I was there to hear detail by detail what went down and just on that particular case. The other 50, 60 women they're talking about, no, I was just there to hear that particular case so I can have the truth for myself. So if I'm ever, or any of my friends or anybody's ever caught in a situation where the justice system is not, on their side, or it can be a little bit misconstrued, or if somebody has the power, because you're missing the point. People say Bill Cosby had a lot of power. Well, look at the power that the people had to do that to him. Make people lie online, really in court, and the media to cover it up over and over again. Because if you were there to read and hear exactly what went down, and I was actually there, I went to the estate and watched and, you just looked at the area for yourself to see it went down, and just it was a consistent thing. I was there for 2 days to hear the trial for my own recognizance. And you can call it whatever you want to. Supported Bill Cosby, my frat brother, a black man, a brother, a legend, a king, or just to hear for the victims, just to hear from the other side of people that been through it. I just want to hear for my own self-determination, my own confirmation of, if I ever talk about this, I'd have the truth to talk about it. I was there to really hear, well, why did they have to lie? And why did 3 people, and why did they get kicked out? And why, if why aren't you reporting what actually happened? People actually think that Bill Cosby snuck a drink or stuck something in your drink and forced you to do this. No, everything was conceptual. Everything was, you want this, I got it. You bit this, you need this, boom. People knew, okay, they tried to make it seem like he was actually out there doing something to her. And this was like they had. Now, this is only speaking on this case. I can't speak on any other case that was done or any other event that they said happened. But this particular trial, which I think should have been thrown out because of the fact that if I told you on paper everything that happened and now you want to go through there and make your own story and make it seem like I was a monster, then it was on me for telling you the whole story. And that's how I perceived that, which was in faith and in good faith. He told everything that happened and he felt like a dirty old man. But it just ran its course over the years and an opportunity perceived itself and people used it to use him as an advantage or as a message. And I think all of this is a learning tool for everybody. No matter what situation you're in, you have to think about who you are, where you're going, and what the world or what society can do to you. And if you don't have enough money, you don't have enough props, or whatever you did in the past, sometimes it can come back on you. And if you don't have the right team, and it's not the right time, you can get you can get really screwed in the wrong way. Now, what they did mention is the fact that yes, he didn't have to go to jail, but he did serve the at least lower time of that 10 year, almost 3 years, which for 80-something-year-old man, that it has to be like 20. And I just felt for, okay, whatever it did, I mean, to imprison him and him to accept everything they gave him. I mean, what else do people want? What else do you want to see him do? Admit it, I did the time, I'm out here, but I did a whole lot good for whatever you said I did bad. Now, can you balance that? No, but I think it's a learning lesson for everybody. No matter how big you are, how big you think you are, how small you think you are, you have a chance to fight. You have a chance to make yourself the hero, the victim, or be victorious in all. But what are we all walking away from? At least the system is working. At least the system worked for somebody like us at this particular time, and not, I'm telling you, not slighting anybody that's a victim and been a victim of any of this, because I would never ever do that, and I never condone the fact that somebody would do this to somebody just for sex and to gain any upper hand on whatever their demonic situation is or whatever their mood was. It goes both ways, and I just pray that everybody gets a piece of, or a sense of mind that, okay, if I do have a voice, it can be heard. And if I was wrongly convicted or something, then, I can be set free.
Well, the point there that he is making, that Joe is making there, Scott, is not what you're seeing. You're seeing a much different reaction. And the reality is, whether or not Bill Cosby was free today or not, in the eyes of many, he is a rapist. He is a sexual assaulter, and that is not going to go away regardless of today's decision.
Yeah, but he certainly is not a sex offender in the eyes of the law, and he does not have a criminal record in the eyes of the law. I think, Roland, you got it right early on in this broadcast when we first started talking about this, is you got these two buckets, right? You've got the law and the implementation of the law that usually works against people that look like you and me, but it worked today, and you got to honor and respect that. The other bucket is those who feel like somehow he cheated the system. But Bill Cosby didn't cheat the system. He's the subject of the system. And if they want to cast aspersions or anger towards someone, it's that second prosecutor who decided not to do the deal that Castro put on the table. And again, I go back to, you can't be angry at Castro because Castro determined there wasn't enough evidence to criminally prosecute him. And so as a result, he said, I'm not going to prosecute you, but because I'm not, you can waive your Fifth Amendment. There's a civil justice system that we all forget about, whether it's police brutality cases or not, that criminal justice system isn't going to change what happened. Civil justice isn't going to change what happened. But in the civil justice system, you can certainly get paid. And that's what the complaining witness in this particular case did, got paid. And so if anyone's going to be angry at anyone, they ought to cast their anger at the second prosecutor who decided to go forward and ran his campaign on prosecuting Bill Cosby. And I think Joe Torre is right also. If you really get into this, you will see that it was not him being this predator that the press has made him out to be. There's ample evidence whereby he either had prior relationships or that they were aware that they were doing these drugs or that he had access to these drugs and what have you. I'm not saying that makes him right. I'm saying in certain cases, right, the prior relationship, which is tough to prove in sexual harassment cases or criminal cases where there's a prior relationship, or whether women even want to go forward. But when there's a prior relationship, it gets really, really difficult to convict anyone. It just does because of the facts.
Monique, I know you have to go soon, and so I want to go to you, on here. And this is the thing that often happens, because what you're dealing with here is you're dealing with celebrity, you're dealing with a rich man, you're dealing with, again, when things go to the appeals process. I think about Klaus von Bülow. I think about other cases where somebody was convicted, and then once it goes to appeal, it's a different sort of standard that is implied. But the reality is this here: there's the court of law and there's the court of public opinion. And in the court of law, Bill Cosby is freed, is sitting at home. You still have the court of public opinion, and what Tanya was talking about, what Faraji was talking about, all of those things are still happening in the court of opinion. And to Robert's point, which you made and Scott made, is that the reality is when you're a lawyer, look, you operate in both worlds. You live in the real world, but you also, or you abide by that legal world.
Yes. What I have been struggling for a number of years, not just regarding this case, but others as just a career criminal defense attorney, and trying to really get people to understand is that it's not good for anyone, for someone, no matter what they did or what you think they did, for someone to be punished and convicted for something they did not do. It's not, as your other guest was referencing, shouldn't there still be some punishment, even if it wasn't Andrea Constant? Well, I mean, the trial was Ms. Constant. Right. And so we should not want to be able to swap out justice or favor or punishment or consequences because, I mean, which one of us hasn't sinned? That simply doesn't work. Am I saying that everyone is a murderer? Everyone is a child abuser? Everyone is a racist, that all people commit those kinds of crimes? No. What I am saying is that in our system, we depend on things being proven, and the Constitution for a reason requires the highest burden of proof in the Constitution for a reason, and state legislation requires that things be done in a certain amount of time so that it is fair to the person who's being accused. So the notion that justice in a legal sense can work when any person who has not been rightfully convicted serve out a sentence, I believe that we should detach ourselves from that in terms of our emotions and our desire to see justice done. If what we truly want is for our system to work, then, and I know this is my 15,000th time saying it, it has to work the same for everybody.
Amen. But the reality, but the reality of, so again, from Monique Presley, we appreciate it. Thank you for joining us on today's show. Faraji, I'm going to go to you, then Faraji, I'm going to you, the Joe Torre, then Robert. Faraji, the reality is that's not how it works in the court of public opinion, and I think this is going to play out. You already see what is happening right now, where lots of criticism being leveled at Felicia Allen Rashad, who played Bill Cosby's wife on the Cosby Show. You've got people who are demanding that she be fired as the dean of the College of Fine Arts at Howard University, because she sent a tweet out saying, "Finally, a terrible wrong is being righted. A miscarriage of justice is corrected." That sent out 5 hours ago. 2 hours ago, 3 hours after her first tweet, she then sent this out. I fully support survivors of sexual assault coming forward. My post was in no way intended to be insensitive to their truth. Personally, I know from friends and family that such abuse has lifelong residual effects. My heartfelt wish is for healing. Now, that first tweet that she sent out, retweeted 32,000 times, liked 11,800 times. That second tweet, retweeted 2,905 times, liked 2,802 times. And now, again, people are demanding Howard University, what are you going to do? And so it's a lot of stuff that's going on. And this is what I talk about, the court of public opinion.
Let's just break it down. That message, the first tweet, is going to be the message that people get from her. It's unfortunate. It's not fair, but that's the message that people are going to get from Phylicia Rashad. Now, should she be stepped down because she supported Bill Cosby? She supported Bill Cosby before she became dean. So that's nothing new. She has worked with him for many, many years. She's known him. They're personal friends. This is nothing new. So I don't think she should be punished for support. Otherwise, we can go down the litany of people that we have reported that may not be looked upon favorably in the court of public opinion. And some of us can, we shouldn't be held liable for supporting somebody. But I think that's the problem, that this type of situation, and again, this is a legal matter. This is a legal process. But at the same time, it's a cultural process. It's a cultural conversation. It's a conversation about victim rights. It's a conversation about celebrity. And I'm not asking, I know Monique has stepped away, so I'm not going to address that the point of how she said that we can't swap it out. You're right. We can't swap it out. But what I do want us to keep in mind is that this type of case is triggering on many, many levels. And I'm sorry, I just cannot fully see quote unquote victory. I mean, Scott, I respect your knowledge as an attorney. I have to disagree with you on saying that this is a victory for us, because many of us, we grew up watching Bill Cosby. He served as a role model. So regardless of whether you agree or disagree or where you stand on this particular case, the fact is we are all disappointed because this man who served as a role model for many of us and for some of us who may not have had a father figure in our life and all of those things, we came to see him. When he spoke, we listened. I mean, this is just a disappointing situation all around, from the supporters and to those who don't support Bill Cosby, from the victims. It's all of it. It's all of it. So I personally, it might be a victory for law, but I'm saying that in terms of the people, this is not a victory. I don't see this as a victory. What I do see is that this is an opportunity for us to go deeper. As much talk that we have about sexual assault, policies in this country have not caught up to the talk. So we don't have legal protection for the protection of women's bodies. We don't have any type of social protection. Women are put on display. The agency of their body has been removed from women. They can't make choices about having children and not. I mean, we are still far beyond, still way behind rather, victory, because women are oppressed. Women are, and I'm speaking of in America, women are not given the right to make decisions about their own bodies, whereas men, we can do that. So there's still a lot of work to be done. And I'm saying that at the end of the day, this case has to open up different conversations. Yes, Bill Cosby can go home today, as he has done, but will the victims find healing? Yeah. Anyway.
Scott, then Robert. And also, folks, let me real clear, just so folks understand, Tanya Fields, who was on earlier, she had the drop. Monique Presley had the drop. So don't think for a second that I'm not cognizant of the fact that we got 6 black men who are having this conversation. Two of our, no, I'm not. I mean, two of our female guests dropped off, but I want to make that point. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, Faraji, I completely agree with you. You're absolutely right. My terminology for victory was clearly in the legal space. But here's the deal, Roland and Joe and Faraji. maybe these buckets that we keep talking about, the victim rights and how they feel, and this public court versus, opinion and legal opinion, maybe they're irreconcilable. Maybe they'll be debated for the rest of time we have on this earth. Certainly, and I'm not comparing the O.J. Simpson trial to this case, but it comes to mind in regard to a lot of other dynamics, but it comes to mind where people still publicly debate the issue of guilt or innocence in that case. They will certainly continue to publicly debate, because the court has ruled, publicly debate whether Cosby was guilty or innocent, or whether this was some type of justice done by the courts. Let's not forget, he served 3 years. Time served, if you will. It's not like he walked away scot-free. And while you call it a technicality or just true justice because his due process rights were violated and the court elected to cure that wrong, maybe this is the dialogue, Faraji, you're talking about. And maybe from this dialogue of these two buckets comes some resolution. I don't think we'll get it on this show. I don't think we'll get it in the next 30 days or so. But maybe at some point this dialogue can merge or reconcile these two buckets, and we can move forward in a better way, protecting young women, protecting their bodies, protecting their rights when they are sexually assaulted or sexually abused.
Robert, then Joe.
Of these issues into one space, and the court system is just in the inappropriate venue to handle these conversations. Well, what the court system is supposed to do is call balls and strikes to make sure that the statutes and the laws are carried out in the way that they are intended to provide justice within the framework of our system. So lawyers are not the people you want to talk to about making moral judgments upon the system. Judges are not the people you want to talk to about curing the harms of society and legislative issues. It's the reason we have three branches of government.
Come on, wait a minute, hold on, Robert. Hold on, Robert. You're saying we can't put that responsibility on judges?
No,
why can't we? Judges make moral decisions.
Listen to what I'm saying. Laws are made by the legislature. You take those issues up in the legislature because that is a co-equal branch of government which is there to create law. You do not want judges judging by judicial fiat on the bench, because then you have arbitrary decision making, which means that there's a different decision made from me because I have a purple shirt on versus you because you have a white shirt on, because you give the judges that power. This is why I'm saying that we're in different venues. You have an executive branch, you have a legislative branch, you have a judicial branch. Within the judicial branch, you have the prosecution, you have the defendant, and you have the judges. Those buckets can never, it's like Ghostbusters. You can never cross streams on those things, because then you end up with inappropriate results. So we're looking to the judges to do what the state legislature or the city council or the governor or the Congress should be doing to fight out these battles. So when you understand the proper venues for these things to take place in, then you can understand, then it gets us to a place where we're having the proper conversation, which is on this question of due process. Lawyers can often be disconnected from the emotions of things because you see them all the time. I've had this happen to clients before, where a junior prosecutor or assistant district attorney will make a plea agreement with you. You'll sign off on all the paperwork. You'll make all of your attestations. Then the senior district attorney will come in and say, "No, I don't agree with any of that." And then they will change the agreement at the last minute. And then there's very little you can do if you do not have the resources of someone like a Bill Cosby to be able to fight it through the appeal system. Many people are sitting in jail right now because they were had a public defender at trial, or their grandmama put up their house in order to get a trial attorney to try to save the grandbaby, but then they did not have money to fight it on appeal. They did not have money to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. So when we're talking about perfecting the judicial system from the inside out, we have to look within the lines on the playing field. There's a reason.
Here's how about we try this, Robert? How about we try this? We often saying, let's fix the system. How come we can't fix the attitudes that create the policies that serves as the foundations for the system?
That's fine.
How come we don't start? How come we don't start with people? How come we don't start with people before we start with institutions and systems?
Listen to what I'm saying. That is a great discussion to have. That is not the discussion to have in a courtroom. That is not a discussion to have with the judges. That's not a discussion to have with the lawyers. That is a discussion to have at the ballot box. That's a discussion you have with your state legislature by lobbying and making sure you have politicians in place that can change state laws, so you can change municipal policy, so you can make sure you have a police chief that has a specific department that deals with sexual assault cases, so you can change employment laws to make sure that women can complain about sexual harassment at work. That is the venue to do that. What I'm saying is that in this particular discussion, within the four walls of the decision that was made today, is a question of whether or not somebody has due process rights and whether or not those are respected by prosecutors, or prosecutors are using deceitful tactics in order to get confessions out of people and then using that to convict them down the line in contravention of their right to confront the testimony and their right to defense and those sorts of things. Those are the rights that are defended in the courtroom. So I'm not diminishing anything you're saying. I'm simply saying that you have to fight it in the right venue.
I do want to get a final comment from Joe Torre here. Joe, obviously Bill Cosby is freed, but the reality is he will be labeled and branded a serial sexual assaulter for the rest of his life. That will be a part of what his legacy is. Do you think that Bill Cosby, now that he's free, after he spent some time at home, do you think he returns to the comedy stage?
I mean, basically, you know, and I love it. Appreciate everybody that's been on this panel today, for the women that are not here and everybody that participated in doing this, and everybody that's watching. People have to understand that the most powerful thing you own is your own mind. What you believe and what you don't want to believe. What you are addicted to, and what is your fantasy, and what is your hate and your pain for the day. And, you know, we kind of live in a system where we either offer relief from that, or we pour fuel on that. And I think Bill is one of those situations where, as a king in the business and in life, you're going to have chapters that, you know, they're not going to be so good for you. You're going to have, you know, nations, and you have some type of generations that come for you. At the end of the day, I only came here for the truth, and everybody wants the truth. And unless you was really in that trial room, you didn't hear the truth. You only heard the edited versions of what somebody else's narrative would be. So if that would be you, you would want the 100% respect and support from everybody that believed in you. The first thing I did was, you know, I go back to the Bible. Where were you when I was sick, when I was at my worst, when I was in jail? Were you there for me? Because we know everybody was there when you're at your best. So I'm at my worst. Where are you? And the system, sometimes, if you're caught up in it, no matter what color you are, whatever you believe in, it's all in your own mind, whether you believe they're free, you're free, or somebody's a victim. I knew that trial was thrown out because it was made up. A lot of people was lying. And I was there for the truth, and I got the truth. Now, if that's not what they're putting out there, you can hate Bill all you want to. He did his time. You can hate me for, you know, being here, and everybody on this panel that's giving our opinion. I have 3 sisters. I had one that was raped. The guy that did it, he's dead now. So my thing is, you know, hey, anybody tell me you raped them and I'm in the family, I'm coming for you. Not 40 years later, not 30 years later, not 2 weeks later, tonight, next week, whenever you tell me. So whatever this is, to protect the Black queen, women, and this is, it's not even about just women. This is about anybody being subdued to be raped, a man, a pig, a dog, anybody put in situations where the crazy mind think that they can take advantage of you should be punished, and I don't condone that. But there's no reward. There's nothing you can give me if you did something that gross to me that I want to be drug out in a court, or I want the public to say, okay, now I'm relieved of that. There's nothing you can do for me. I'm saying there's not a bill you can pay. You know what I'm saying? And I know the bill that you can pay for that. And that's what I'll do. But that'll be my own personal business. So I say I hope everybody learns something from all of this, which is because it's a learning tool. That's why we have this great new field of this you know, the internet, where everybody can talk and feel and get their own points across. So if you're in any situation, you know are out in any level, because everybody's here and it can be in that same situation. On the other side of this microphone, on the other side of that camera. And you would hope that somebody would hear your truth.
Is Roland still there?
I think Roland might be be frozen.
So now, yeah, we still have some issues here. Joe Torre, I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. You hear me? I'm out.
Yep. We hear you. Thank you so very much, folks. If you missed earlier, there was a news conference outside of Bill Cosby's home where his representative spoke, and we wanted to show that to you. Here it is.
We love you, Mr. Cosby! We love you, sir! We love you, sir! We knew it! We knew it! We knew it!
Scoot over just a little bit.
Don't miss it!
Can you take the pole? Can you take the pole inside? You can take this inside if you want. Okay.
No, right here.
Hey. 204.
Okay, everybody. We want to thank the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court, as I mentioned earlier, for reviewing Mr. Cosby's appeal, but also seeing the light, seeing the lies, seeing that Mr. Cosby had immunity. This U.S. citizen who served our country in the Navy, not just in the Navy, but he served our country in so many different ways through his celebrity, him and Mrs. Cosby. Mr. Cosby has always used his celebrity, his name, his likeness, to uplift women. This is a man who refused to perform at the White House with Nixon. Nixon put him on a accompanist list in the 60s, along with so many other great names like Dick Gregory, Jane Fonda. How could a man who was being watched by the FBI every day be raping and drugging women in the 60s and 70s, especially a black man? Today, innocence came to Mr. Cosby with the help of these wonderful attorneys.
Yes.
To his right, you will see Ms. Jennifer Blungeen. She argued the appeal. To my left, you see Brian Perry.
Yes.
To Brian's left, Ashley Cohen. And then you have Haley Cohen. These are women and men who from all walks of life. As I said earlier, James Brown made a song, it's a man's world, but it would be nothing without a woman and girl. Mrs. Cosby was that woman. For 57 years, the queen, the matriarch of the Cosby family, who fought for his vindication, who said he would be vindicated. And today, on this hot day, this is a hot verdict for us that we will forever cherish, because we got one of the greatest, or the greatest entertainer alive today. Mr. Bill Cosby, this great American citizen, this American treasure, this icon with us today. I'm going to allow Ms. Blungeen to say a few words. Ms. Blungeen?
Yes, obviously we are thrilled to have Mr. Cosby home. He served 3 years of an unjust sentence.
Too long.
He did it with dignity and principle, and he was a mentor to other inmates. He was really, as I say, doing the time. The time was not doing him.
He's a classy man.
And I want to say this about the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. They demonstrated that they were impervious to the court of public opinion, which, frankly, the lower courts were not. Mr. Cosby, we knew all along he never should have been prosecuted for this. He had every right to rely on the prosecutor's word. And they pulled the rug out from underneath him because of politics, because of the court of public opinion, and that is not how our system should operate. When that happens, there cannot be a just sentence. And if there had been a just verdict and a just sentence, we wouldn't be here fighting. But there was not a just sentence and a not a just verdict. And I think it's really important that we keep our eye on the ball, that our Constitution is sacred, and that we need to uphold it at all times. And I'm glad that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court saw it the way we did.
Brian Perry.
I'm very proud of the team that we put together, very proud to be part of this case. We always thought that eventually this is where it would end up. Mr. Cosby and I had many, many talks over the last couple of years. I predicted it, and we're here. It's a good day for the Cosby family.
Mr. Cosby, how does it feel to be home?
Well, he is extremely happy to be home. He looks forward to reuniting with his wife and his children. And obviously, this has been a hard 3 years for this entire family. And it's really a blessing for him. And he says, you know, his heart is just beating really fast, and he's happy to be here.
And we have Ashley here who worked on the case. Ashley, say a few words. Ashley Cohen.
I'm just honored to be part of such an amazing team. These lawyers did an incredible job, and I was so thankful to be a part of it and to help Mr. Cosby, and I'm just proud to be here and watch him get released.
And this wonderful attorney, Haley, you see right here. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Her father was in prison with Mr. Cosby, and he sent a message to Mr. Cosby before he left today for her. Say a few words.
He did. He said he loves me very, very much. And
What's your father's name?
Richard. And I in return love him very, very much in return, and I was glad that Mr. Cosby and got to know each other while incarcerated together, and I'm blessed and so grateful to be here to see Mr. Cosby be released.
And in closing, this was an unwanted 3-year vacation that Mr. Cosby never asked for. But in hindsight, we're happy that he got it because he was able to pull the covers off of the corruption in Montgomery County with the crooked DA, with the crooked judge, Steele and O'Neill. These same people find this man, this American citizen. I don't know how a DA has that much time on his hand to fine him $2,010 for not cutting his yard. I was on the way to pay that fine when I got a call from Nick DeHatt, and Nick told me that they had vacated the conviction. You know, what we saw today was justice. Justice for all Americans. Mr. Cosby's conviction being overturned is for the world and all Americans who are being treated unfairly by the judicial system and some bad officers, because all officers are not bad. So we want to thank this entire team. We want to thank Mrs. Cosby, her family. I want to thank my family, and just thank you all for those who decided to tell the truth and allowed us to tell the truth when we had the opportunity. Thank you.
You have anything to say?
Mr. Cosby, how you feeling? Are you happy to be out?
Shit. Feeling free. Nick, you better do right by him when you make this video. I'm telling you, they let the white boy do it. You better do it right, Nick. I'm not playing with you, Nick. You better tell the real story, Nick. Don't play around. I mean it. You better not do this for money, Nick. You better tell the real story, Nick. I'm not playing with you, Nick. You better tell the truth.
All right, folks. That was the news conference a little bit earlier. Bill Cosby speaking there. I want to give final comments on this, final thoughts on this story. Faraj Muhammad, you first.
Yeah, I think the final comment is this whole situation has put black people and has put women in a crossroads. I mean, you want to believe that the system will continue to work. You want to believe in justice. I mean, we've had multiple conversations about justice in this country because of everything from George Floyd to this situation. But at the same time, it also has caused us to kind of stop and figure out, okay, what is the next step? What is going to be the best course of action for people? And as much as we talking about, and I heard Mr. Cosby's attorney often talking about he's being an American citizen, Black folks still want to believe that America, the American judicial system, has something to offer to us by way of right decisions and right judgments. And I just want to say that it's a hard place for us to be when we get a little victory here and we don't see victory in other places. It's a hard place for us to be, and it's like a form of social schizophrenia because we want to believe, but sometimes the reality won't allow us to believe. And so this is where we are right now. But the best course of action is for us to help people to empower themselves so that way we can create better policies that will undergird these corrupt policies in the judicial system and other systems.
Well, I think it's important for us to understand that if there are unjust laws, the best course of action is to change those laws. So that means to turn out in elections, make sure you're concentrating on who is being elected to judge, who's being elected to DA, and also to work in your state legislatures. Well, very often we get a lot of excitement around national elections, around the presidential elections or the congressional elections. You have to concentrate on who your state representative is, who your county commissioner is, who your state senator is, your alderman, your wardsman, because they're the ones who are going to be making those laws on the state and local level that will really be impacting you. And I think this is a great place where you can concentrate on judicial reform and reforms on the criminal justice system to ensure that if you feel this was an injustice on either side, that you create laws and procedures where it cannot happen again. The United States judicial system is something that is always a work in progress, and the way that it progresses is by the people being involved.
Scott Bolden.
Yeah, I was listening to the press conference, and as you know, I'm a former New York prosecutor, and I've been doing white-collar criminal defense for the last 30 years. Every one of my clients I ask before they go in and when they come out, I ask this one question, Roland. What are you going to do with the rest of your life? Because this is just a segment. This is just a photograph of where you are right now. And prison has a way of making everyone reflective. Some join religions like a lot of people do when they go in and come out of prison. But Bill Cosby has a lot to do with this narrative that's going to follow his vacated criminal judgment. What he says and what he does with the rest of his life. I don't know what that narrative is going to be. He's had a lot of time to think about it, but he'll have a lot to say, I think, and his actions will have a lot to say about women's rights and victims' rights and kind of the Me Too movement. I think his reflections will be powerful. I hope they don't disappoint, because solitude in prison and these moments you have, I believe the higher being gives us those moments to be reflective and to figure out what's next and to really listen to him and what he wants us to do. I think it'll be interesting to watch Bill Cosby and what his first interview is, what his next steps are. And I think that'll have a lot to do with what we pull from those two buckets we've talked about, the criminal case and the social reaction and the public opinion.
All right, folks, I got to go to a break. I'm having some issues. You can hear me. You can't see me. I have no idea what the hell's going on. But we're going to go to a break. We'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered in a moment. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
I believe that people our age have lost the ability to focus the discipline on the art of organizing.
The challenges, there's so many of them and they're complex, and we need to be moving to address them. But I'm able to say, watch out, Tiffany. I know this road.
That is so freaking dope.
Hello, I'm Nina Turner. My grandmother used to say, all you need in life are 3 bones. The wishbone to keep you dreaming, the jawbone to help you speak truth to power, and the backbone to keep you standing through it all. I'm running for Congress because you deserve a leader who will stand up fearlessly on your behalf. Together, we will deliver Medicare for all, good jobs that pay a living wage, and bold justice reform. I'm Nina Turner, and I approve this message.
George Floyd's death hopefully put another nail in the coffin of racism.
You talk about awakening America, it led to a historic summer of protest.
I hope our younger generation don't ever forget that nonviolence is soul force.
Right.
What's up? This is Aldous Hodge, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey everybody, it's your girl Sherry Shepherd, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Hey Roland.
Tim Story, director of Shaft. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. What up, y'all? This is Method Man, Mighty Wu-Tang Clan. You watching Uncle Roland Martin, and the show is Unfiltered. Make sure y'all tune in. Laura Ingram, you suck.
raised in Houston. Well, your show is in D.C. I'm watching, baby. I'm paying attention. I love what you do for the brothers, man.
Well, I appreciate
I like how you defend the Democrats.
Well, you know, but when they wrong, I'm gonna get that.
Yeah, you don't take no sides, but you hold it down, and I appreciate you for that.
Well, somebody got to swing on.
Thank you. Swing on. Keep swinging
all day.
Hey.
All right, folks, the 2021 Essence Festival of Culture taking place. You can watch it Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, July 2nd through the 4th. Please do so. All right, y'all. The University of North Carolina Board of Trustees has just voted, actually a little bit earlier today, to grant tenure to Nicole Hannah-Jones, a 9-4 vote. Remember, they sort of chose not to do so. That led to a huge uproar. Donors began to say, I'm good, we out. Well, now it's 9-4. No word if she's going to actually take the job. Scott, this was a big brouhaha. White folks, conservatives are really upset with the 1619 project. they're a little mad that we now get an opinion about how America was created. And so they tried to smack her down, offering her this other sort of job. She said, "No, I ain't taking that one. Y'all got to offer some tenure." I would dare say this 9-4 vote to grant her tenure is also a result of them not want to get their asses sued.
Well, that's probably true. She is a terrific lady. Morehouse just gave her an honorary degree, I believe, in humane letters. I serve on the board of Morehouse, and had a chance to spend time with her. She is just terrific. She knows herself. She is true to herself, and I'm not surprised that she turned them down, and hopefully will accept the tenure. We'll wait to see that. But that's the truth. You're talking about 16, 19, and white folks not wanting to talk about slavery and the reality of America. Somehow white people think that talking about slavery and racial oppression, which is part of our American culture and the history of this country, right, and failed promises to people who look like you and me, somehow they lose something by telling the truth. And yet in 2043, we're going to be a country of color, which are the very people that they want to suppress telling the truth about. It's undeniable. They can't outrun it. And so this whole critical race theory nonsense is just that. All we want to do is tell the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Faraji?
I totally agree with Scott on this one. Absolutely. I mean, she deserves it. The project was groundbreaking, especially for it to be carried in a major national publication. But I think even more so than that, it got the conversation started once again about our history from our perspective. And I agree with Scott on the whole critical race conversation. I mean, this critical race theory, this country will never get to a progressive state if it can't even confront the reality of white supremacy, of racism, of the transatlantic slave trade. It will never get to any place. And I think that part of it is because of a cultural perspective. Part of it seems like since we are having these conversations on social media, since somebody, whether it's the president or any other person, may acknowledge it, that it's done with. I remember, Roland, reading a piece last year when, and I forgot the publication, but it was mentioned that when we have used the term racial reckoning in describing the protest of 2020, the author was making a point, there is no reckoning until something is actually being done. And I think that is the big part of this as a community organizer and as one that has worked with various communities. It's, the acknowledgement is only the beginning. But if there are policy changes, if there are something substantial that people can hold on to, that our children will be able to benefit and gain from, then we can say there is a reckoning. But just acknowledging it, just saying, "Oh, it's white supremacy. Oh, we need to disrupt systemic racism," that's not enough, because look at where the country is. I mean, look at where the institutions are. We can say all of those things, but for example, we could talk about bad policing, but unless there is you push forward with the George Floyd Justice for Policing Act, then what are we talking about here?
Absolutely. Well, we'll see what happens on that one. I do want to go ahead and give a shout out. Some history was made. The first black head of the U.S. Forestry Service. That announcement was made. His name is Randy Moore. He will lead the Forestry Service, overseeing the 193 million acres of public land. He previously served as a regional forester in the California-based Pacific Southwest region. He was responsible for 18 national forests in California and Hawaii. He's been leading the response to the increase in catastrophic wildfires in California. And he will collaborate with the outgoing head of the department to combat the upcoming severe wildlife season in the West. So we certainly want to shout out Randy Moore, the new U.S. Forest Chief, the first U.S. Forest Service Chief, first African-American serving in that position. Again, folks, earlier today, we with a toll system meltdown, but it's all good. So here's what's happening. Today's our last day in our old offices. Tomorrow we move into our new space. We're getting everything all straightened out. And so I can't wait for us to begin a broadcast from our new location. It's going to be fabulous. And so I can't wait till y'all get to see it as well. So I'm going to cut the show short today. There's a bunch of people I want to thank. I want to thank obviously Scott Faraji. Faraji, first time being on our panel here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. He, of course, was on TV One News One. Now you're going to be seeing a lot more of him on the show. So I really appreciate it. I want to thank Monique Presley for joining us, Tanya Fields, Joe Torre being with as well. All talking about the Bill Cosby case. Folks, that is it. If you want to support what we do, please join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar you give goes to support this show. You can join us, of course. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal.me/R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo.com, it's /RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com or Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Folks, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Sorry for all the technical issues. Don't know what all the bugaboos were all about, but again, we're using StreamYard because we're not in studio. The entire show is virtual, which is normally not how we do it. Our control room is down. And so hopefully by Monday, hopefully by tomorrow, but I really think by Monday, we have our control room completely back up. But we're not going to be here Monday. We're going to have a day off. And so I'm going to see you guys tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Y'all take care. Holla!
Thank you.